What if I told you that the very light inside you, the one that shines so brightly in your kindness, could also become the very chain that holds you captive? Kindness is a gift, a grace, a language that every soul understands. It has the power to heal wounds no medicine can touch, to soften hearts that even time has hardened. Yet, let me tell you something that may feel heavy in your chest. The same kindness that makes you beautiful can also make you vulnerable. Some people see your open hands not as an offering of love, but as an opportunity to take, to demand, and to control. They twist your generosity into their rope of power, and before you even realize it, you are tied in knots you did not consent to wear. That is why you must stay with me until the last word of this message, because this truth can free you. This understanding can give you back the power that was always yours. Kindness is strength, not weakness. Yet the world has done a masterful job of convincing people otherwise. Somewhere along the way, people began to believe that kindness was fragile, that it was naive, that it was something to be taken advantage of. But let me tell you this truth that will not bend. Kindness is not the trembling of the powerless. It is the roar of the courageous. It is not the posture of the defeated. It is the choice of the strong. Only a strong soul can look into the eyes of cruelty and still choose compassion. Only a powerful heart can endure betrayal, disappointment, and pain, and still refuse to become bitter. Kindness requires bravery because it asks you to do what the world tells you not to do. The world says, protect yourself, build walls, strike before they strike you, take before you are taken from. But kindness whispers another way. It says, give even when you have little. Love even when you have scars. Forgive even when the wound is fresh. That is not weakness. That is strength beyond measure. It is the strength to walk a higher road when the lower one is crowded and easy to take. The weak spirit hides behind anger, aggression, and cruelty. They mask their fear with dominance. They cover their insecurities by trying to control others. But kindness does not need disguise. Kindness is bold enough to be soft because it knows that softness is not surrender. It is a declaration, I will not let this world harden me. That declaration is strength. That choice is power. Think about the moments in your life when kindness carried you. Perhaps there was a day when you were at your lowest, when the weight of the world pressed against your chest, and one gentle act from another human being became the hand that lifted you. That act did not come from weakness. It came from someone who understood the weight of life and still chose to lift another's burden. Weakness cannot lift. Weakness collapses. Strength and strength alone carries another soul. Too often, people confuse kindness with passivity. They think that to be kind means to never stand up for yourself, to always say yes, to always yield. But real kindness is not passive, it is active. It is a choice made in strength, not in fear. The person who is afraid of confrontation may avoid conflict and call it kindness, but that is not kindness. That is fear dressed up in polite clothes. Real kindness does not run from truth. Real kindness speaks with honesty, even when the honesty is hard to hear. Real kindness says, I love you enough to be real with you. The danger, however, is that toxic people see kindness as an open invitation. They confuse your willingness to love with an opportunity to use. They mistake your patience for weakness, your generosity for emptiness, your forgiveness for foolishness. But here is where the truth must be spoken. Kindness is not blind. It sees, it notices, it understands, but it chooses not to return cruelty with cruelty. That is not weakness. That is control. That is strength. Strength is not always loud. Strength is not always in the clenched fist or the shouted word. Sometimes strength is in the calm reply. Sometimes strength is in walking away when every part of you wants to fight back. Sometimes strength is in refusing to let someone pull you down into their chaos. That restraint, that grace is not weakness. It is the purest kind of power. The weak cannot sustain kindness. The weak crumble under the weight of disappointment and betrayal. The weak harden into bitterness after the first sting of rejection. But the strong stay kind even when kindness is not returned. The strong give, not because they have not been hurt, but because they refuse to let hurt define them. The strong love, not because they are naive, but because they know love is stronger than hate. Think of the river. It looks gentle, it looks soft. Yet over time, that same river carves valleys, smooths stones, and shapes landscapes. Its strength is not in violence, but in persistence. Kindness is that river. It may seem gentle, but its strength transforms everything it touches. The unkind cannot do that. They can harm, yes. They can wound, but they cannot build. They cannot heal. They cannot transform. Only kindness holds that power. So when someone tells you that you are too kind, remind yourself, kindness is not something too much. It is not a flaw. It is not a weakness. It is the very evidence of strength that others cannot always understand. And when toxic people try to twist it, when they try to use it as a chain, remember that the strength that fuels your kindness can also fuel your boundaries. You are not kind because you must be. You are kind because you choose to be. And in that choice lies your power. Strength wears many faces. Sometimes it looks like resilience, sometimes like courage, sometimes like silence. But the most radiant face strength ever wears is kindness. And when you carry it with wisdom, you become unstoppable. For the world has enough cruelty. It has enough hardness. What it needs, what it aches for, is the kind of strength that only kindness can give. Toxic people seek open doors. They do not always come crashing into your life with noise and chaos. No, they are far more subtle, far more strategic. They come quietly, testing the hinges, pushing gently against your boundaries, waiting to see how wide the door will swing. They do not want a door that resists. They want a door that opens easily. They want the house of your spirit to be unlocked so they can enter without asking. Rearrange the furniture of your peace and sit down as though they have always belonged there. And the truth is, they are skilled at recognizing which doors are open. They can see it in the way you apologize too quickly, even when you have done no wrong. They hear it in the way you soften your no until it almost sounds like a yes. They notice how you bend, how you yield, how you sacrifice. To them, this is not kindness to be respected, but opportunity to be exploited. They look for people whose hearts are wide, whose compassion is abundant, whose forgiveness is deep. They look for people who will give the benefit of the doubt again and again. They look for people who want peace so badly that they are willing to carry all the burden themselves just to keep the waters calm. Toxic people study you like a map, and they learn exactly where your open doors are. And once they find them, they enter. But here is what makes it dangerous. They rarely show up as villains. They do not announce themselves with cruelty at the beginning. They enter with charm, with need, with a story that stirs your empathy. They say, "No one has ever treated me the way you do." They say, "You're the only one I can count on." They flatter your goodness because they know goodness is your soft spot. And little by little, the open door of your kindness becomes their invitation to stay as long as they wish. They do not respect boundaries because to them, boundaries are inconveniences. If you try to close the door, they push harder. If you try to lock it, they find another way in. They may use guilt, reminding you of everything they've done for you or everything you owe them. They may use pity, painting themselves as helpless so that you feel cruel for turning them away. Or they may use anger, exploding with rage, so that you keep the peace by leaving the door open just a little longer. And every time you yield, every time you allow them back in, they learn. They learn how to control you. They learn how to predict your responses. They learn how much they can take before you push back. Toxic people are not just opportunists. They are observers. They watch you carefully, and when they see an open door, they do not hesitate. But it is not only toxic individuals, it can also be toxic patterns. Maybe you were raised to believe that being good meant never saying no. Maybe you were taught that love means sacrifice without limits. Maybe you were told that forgiveness means allowing people to hurt you again and again. These teachings leave doors wide open, and toxic people walk through them as if they were made just for them. You must understand, not every knock on the door of your life deserves an answer. Not every visitor deserves entry. Your compassion is sacred space. Your generosity is sacred ground. If you open the door to everyone who asks, you will soon find your house filled with people who take and take until you are empty. Toxic people do not come to fill you. They come to feed off you. And the hungrier they are, the more they will consume. They will not stop because you are tired. They will not stop because you are hurting. They will not stop because you are breaking. They will only stop when you learn to shut the door. And shutting the door is not unkind. It is necessary. It is the act of choosing yourself, of saying, my peace matters, my spirit matters, my kindness matters, and I will not waste it on those who abuse it. You are not closing your heart to the world. You are closing your heart to harm. There is a difference. When you begin to recognize the signs of a toxic presence, you will see the pattern more clearly. They do not ask for what they need once. They ask again and again, testing how far your patience stretches. They do not take responsibility for their mistakes. Instead, they twist the blame until it sits heavy on your shoulders. They do not respect when you are weary. They demand more as if your exhaustion is their right. These are the footprints they leave as they walk through the open doors of your life. And yet there is power in knowing this truth, because once you see the pattern, you can begin to change the locks. You can begin to fortify the doors of your soul. You can still be kind, but with discernment. You can still love, but with wisdom. You can still forgive, but with the understanding that forgiveness does not always mean reunion. The door can close, and you can still wish them well from the other side. Your kindness is not meant to be a wide open door for every toxic soul that wanders by. It is meant to be a sanctuary for those who will honor it, protect it, and reciprocate it. And when you begin to guard your door with wisdom, toxic people will realize they no longer have access. They may pound, they may plead, they may rage, but the power will no longer belong to them. It will belong to you. Manipulation hides in the language of need. Rarely does manipulation walk into your life wearing a mask of cruelty. It is cleverer than that. It does not come shouting or demanding at first. It comes whispering. It comes in the form of phrases that sound innocent, even flattering. It comes in tones that tug at your compassion, that awaken your desire to help. It cloaks itself in the language of vulnerability so that you do not recognize the chain being fastened around your spirit until it is already too tight to escape. Those who manipulate know this truth. People with kind hearts cannot turn away from need. They study you until they understand the shape of your compassion, until they know exactly what words will stir you into action. They say, I couldn't get through this without you. They say, you're the only one I can trust. They say, if you really cared, you would do this for me. The words seem soft, but beneath them lies steel. They are not asking, they are binding. They are not expressing need, they are exploiting it. Manipulation hides in stories of helplessness. It hides in exaggerated tales of pain that are repeated again and again until you feel guilty even imagining turning away. It hides in tears that may be real or may be rehearsed, but either way, they serve a purpose: to make you believe that their survival depends on your sacrifice. They build a stage of desperation and cast you as the hero, but they never intend to let you leave the play. For as long as you keep responding, they will keep writing new scenes, and they are careful. They do not take everything at once. At first, it may seem small, an errand, a loan, a favor. You give freely because generosity is your nature. But then the favors grow larger. The expectations become heavier. And before long, the giving is no longer yours to choose. It has become obligation. It has become control. And you, who only wanted to help, are now bound by invisible chains. The manipulation deepens when they weave guilt into the language of need. They remind you of all you have done for them, not to thank you, but to make sure you know you cannot stop. They tell you how much it would hurt them if you said no, how lost they would be without you, how cruel you would appear if you chose yourself. And because your heart is tender, because you cannot stand to be seen as unkind, you give again. And every time you give against your will, their power grows stronger. This is not love. This is not friendship. This is control. For real love never demands at the expense of your soul. Real friendship never manipulates your compassion until you are empty. Real connection never disguises dependency as devotion. Manipulation is the opposite of love. It is the theft of freedom disguised as intimacy. And here is what makes it even more dangerous. Sometimes they do not even know they are manipulating. Some people have learned to survive by using others, and they have practiced it so long that it has become their nature. They are not always calculating villains in dark rooms. Sometimes they are broken people who never learned another way. But whether they mean it or not, the effect is the same. Your kindness becomes a leash, your compassion becomes currency, and your freedom becomes the cost. That is why discernment is so vital. You must learn to hear the difference between genuine need and manipulative need. Genuine need is honest. It asks once and respects your answer. It carries gratitude, not guilt. It honors your boundaries, even in its desperation. Manipulative need, however, is relentless. It circles back again and again. It turns your no into negotiations. It makes you feel like helping is no longer a choice but a duty. Genuine need leaves you lighter because giving feels pure. Manipulative need leaves you heavier because giving feels forced. Pay attention to how you feel after helping someone. Do you feel drained, resentful, uneasy, or do you feel fulfilled, peaceful, connected? Your emotions will tell you whether you are responding to true need or to manipulation. And once you begin to notice the difference, you will see the patterns everywhere. Manipulation thrives in silence. It thrives when you do not name it. As long as you believe that every request is genuine, you remain bound. But the moment you call it what it is, the moment you recognize the language of need as manipulation, the chains begin to loosen. You start to reclaim your right to choose when and how you give. You remember that your kindness is not infinite currency to be spent at another's will. And it is important to remember saying no to manipulation is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is the decision to protect your compassion from being misused. It is the decision to save your strength for those who truly need it, for those who will honor it, for those who will never twist it into chains. Your kindness was not meant to be coerced. It was meant to be offered freely from a place of strength. So listen carefully to the language spoken around you. When someone says, "If you loved me, you would," that is not love, that is manipulation. When someone says, "You are the only one who can save me," that is not devotion, that is manipulation. When someone makes your refusal feel like cruelty, they are not asking, they are controlling. And you, my friend, were not born to be controlled. You were born to be free, to give love on your own terms, and to let your kindness be a light, not a leash. Boundaries are acts of love. Too often, the world confuses boundaries with rejection, as though drawing a line means you have shut someone out, as though saying no means you have hardened your heart. But boundaries are not punishments. Boundaries are protections. They are not a withdrawal of love. They are love in its clearest form. Love for yourself, love for your peace, love for your spirit, and even love for those around you who benefit when you are whole instead of broken. When you set a boundary, you are not closing your heart, you are closing the door to harm. You are saying, "I will give, but I will not be emptied. I will love, but I will not be diminished. I will forgive, but I will not be used." A boundary is not a wall of cruelty. It is a door with a lock that you control, and in that lock lies freedom. The truth is, without boundaries, kindness becomes a weapon against you. Without boundaries, your compassion becomes a resource for others to consume until you are nothing but a shadow of yourself. Without boundaries, you begin to give in ways that are not gifts, but sacrifices of your own dignity. And when kindness costs your self-respect, it is no longer kindness at all. It is surrender. Think of the body. The skin is a boundary. It is not there to keep love out. It is there to protect the organs that make life possible. It allows touch, connection, warmth, and care, but it also keeps out what would harm. Without skin, the body is exposed and vulnerable. With skin, the body is safe and whole. In the same way, your spirit needs its own skin. Your soul needs boundaries so that it can remain healthy, vibrant, and alive. The challenge is that toxic people despise boundaries. They see them not as expressions of self-love, but as barriers to their control. When you begin to say no, when you begin to guard your time, your energy, and your heart, they will accuse you of being selfish. They will tell you that you've changed, that you've grown cold, that you are not as kind as you used to be. But remember, this is not truth. It is manipulation. Their anger is not proof that your boundaries are wrong. Their anger is proof that your boundaries are working. To love without boundaries is to confuse sacrifice with devotion. It is to confuse exhaustion with generosity. But true love, true care, does not demand that you destroy yourself to prove it. When you set boundaries, you are teaching people how to treat you. You are saying, "This is where I end, and this is where you begin. This is how we can coexist without harm." Boundaries create clarity, and clarity creates healthier relationships. Even with yourself, boundaries matter. You need boundaries with your own thoughts, with your own fears, with your own guilt. How many times have you let the voices of doubt talk you into giving more than you had? How many times have you let guilt convince you that saying yes was the only way to be good? Boundaries silence those voices. Boundaries remind you that you are allowed to rest. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to honor your own needs without apology. And let us not mistake kindness for endless availability. Being available to everyone all the time is not noble. It is unsustainable. If you give to everyone else without boundary, eventually there will be nothing left of you to give. And then, When those who truly need your light come to you, you will have no light left to offer. Boundaries ensure that your light continues to burn, that your well continues to flow, that your love continues to be pure. It takes courage to set boundaries. It takes courage to disappoint others in order to remain true to yourself. It takes courage to let go of the approval that comes from being endlessly available. But that courage is the highest form of self-respect. It is the moment you decide that your peace is worth protecting even if others do not understand. Do not confuse boundaries with walls of bitterness. Bitterness says, I will never let anyone in again. Boundaries say, I will let love in, but I will not let harm pass. Bitterness is born of pain. Boundaries are born of wisdom. Bitterness isolates. Boundaries empower. And when you begin to live with healthy boundaries, you discover that your relationships shift. Some people will leave because they only stayed as long as they could use you, but others will stay because they value you for who you are, not just for what you give. Those are the ones who deserve the fullness of your love. Sometimes the greatest act of love is not saying yes, it is saying no. It is saying no to manipulation, no to disrespect, no to being drained. It is saying yes to your own spirit, yes to your own healing, yes to your own growth. And when you say yes to yourself, you create space for love that is real, love that is mutual, love that does not need to consume you in order to exist. Boundaries are not about keeping people out. They are about deciding who and what you allow in. They are about saying, I will not build a prison around my heart, but neither will I leave the doors wide open for destruction to walk through. Boundaries allow you to love with open hands, without fear that those hands will be shackled. They allow you to give freely without resentment, because what you give is your choice and not someone else's demand. So when you begin to draw the lines, do it without guilt. When you begin to close certain doors, do it without apology. Boundaries are not a betrayal of your kindness, they are the protection of it. They are not a rejection of others, they are an affirmation of yourself. And in affirming yourself, you make your love even more powerful because it flows from a place of strength instead of depletion. Your kindness is the mirror of your self-worth. Every act of love, every gesture of compassion, every ounce of patience you pour into the world reflects how you see yourself. If you believe you are unworthy, your kindness becomes something you give to earn acceptance, a bargain to prove that you deserve to be loved. But if you believe in your own worth, your kindness becomes an overflow, a gift that flows from a place of strength and abundance. The difference is not in the action, it is in the spirit behind it. So many people confuse kindness with validation. They say yes when their soul is begging them to say no. They forgive too quickly, not because their heart is ready, but because they fear losing someone if they don't. They give until they are empty, not because they want to, but because they believe emptiness is the price of being loved. This is not kindness. It is self-abandonment dressed in gentle clothes. And self-abandonment is always rooted in a wound of worth. Toxic people know this. They see the cracks in the mirror of your self-worth and they exploit them. They recognize when your kindness is fueled not by strength, but by fear. They recognize when you say yes, not out of joy, but out of dread that no will push others away. They recognize when your giving is not freedom, but desperation. And once they see it, they use it. They know that the weaker your reflection of self-worth, the more they can control you. But here is the truth. Real kindness is never a performance. Real kindness is not currency to buy love, not a ticket to belonging. Real kindness is the natural expression of someone who already knows their value. It is not about earning love, it is about sharing love. It is not about seeking approval, it is about living in abundance. When you know your worth, you stop giving to be seen, and you start giving because you already see yourself clearly. Look into your own life. How many times have you given your energy to someone who did not respect it? How many times have you poured out love to someone who treated it as though it were nothing? And why did you stay? Why did you keep giving? Often, it is because somewhere deep down, you thought this was the best you could get. Somewhere deep down, you believed that love was conditional, that to keep it, you had to sacrifice yourself. That belief is not truth. It is a distortion in the mirror of your self-worth. Imagine standing in front of a cracked mirror. No matter how beautiful you are, the cracks distort your reflection. They make you doubt what is real. They make you believe you are broken, even when you are whole. In the same way, when the mirror of your self-worth is cracked, you cannot see the truth of your own value. And if you cannot see it, you begin to rely on others to tell you who you are. That is when toxic people gain power. They speak into the cracks, and you believe them. But the miracle is this: mirrors can be repaired. Self-worth can be restored. It begins the moment you decide that your kindness is not proof of your value, but an expression of it. You are valuable whether or not anyone notices your giving. You are worthy whether or not anyone thanks you. You are enough even when you do not pour yourself out for others. When you believe this, your kindness shifts. It no longer chains you, it frees you. When you give from a place of low self-worth, your kindness feels heavy. It feels like obligation, like duty, like a desperate attempt to keep love from slipping away. You say yes, but the yes tastes bitter. You forgive, but the forgiveness feels hollow. You help, but the helping drains you. That is not kindness, it is survival. But when you give from a place of strong self-worth, kindness feels light. It feels joyful, natural, effortless. You say yes, and the yes comes from freedom. You forgive, and the forgiveness heals both you and the other. You help, and the helping leaves you richer, not poorer. This is why strengthening your self-worth is not selfish. It is sacred. It transforms the way you give. It protects you from those who would misuse your compassion. It turns your kindness from a chain into a crown. Toxic people cannot manipulate someone who knows their value because their worth is not up for negotiation. Their yes means yes, and their no means no, and neither is swayed by fear of abandonment. And here is something else. The mirror of self-worth does not just affect how you give. It affects how you receive. If you see yourself as unworthy, you will struggle to accept love. You will deflect compliments, reject help, and downplay your needs. But if you see yourself as worthy, you allow yourself to receive as openly as you give. You understand that love is not a transaction. It is a flow. You give and you receive. You pour out and you are filled again. That balance is what keeps kindness alive and sustainable. So stand before the mirror of your own soul and ask, what do I see? Do I see someone who must earn love by bending and breaking? Or do I see someone who already carries love within them, someone who is worthy without condition? The answer to that question will determine how your kindness lives in this world. Because kindness is not weakness and it is not proof. It is a reflection. It mirrors what you believe about yourself. And the clearer your self-worth, the purer your kindness will shine. Recognizing the pattern is freedom. Freedom does not arrive all at once with trumpets and banners. It arrives quietly, in the stillness of awareness, in the moment when your eyes open to see what was hidden all along. The chains around your spirit do not fall because they are cut. They fall because you finally see them for what they are. Recognition is the first step, and without it, you remain bound. Toxic people thrive in blindness. They rely on repetition, on routines of control that weave themselves into the fabric of your daily life until you no longer notice them. They call and you answer. They demand and you give. They wound and you forgive before the scar has even formed. It becomes a cycle so familiar that it feels normal, almost natural. But what is familiar is not always what is right. And until you recognize the pattern, you cannot step outside it. Recognition is the light that reveals the truth. It shows you how their words, which once felt tender, are threaded with guilt. It shows you how their requests, which once felt reasonable, have grown into expectations that leave you drained. It shows you how your kindness has been twisted into a leash, pulled tight whenever you try to move freely. Recognition whispers, this is not love, this is not care, this is not respect. And when you hear that whisper, you cannot unhear it. Think of the moment a bird realizes the cage door is not locked. The bars have always been there, but the lock was never truly fastened. It could have flown out long ago, but it believed the door was closed. Recognition is that moment for the soul, the realization that what felt permanent was only perception. The cycle was strong, but it was not unbreakable. And the very moment you see it, you begin to move differently. There is power in patterns, but there is greater power in naming them. When you name the manipulation, it loses its disguise. When you name the guilt tripping, it loses its hold. When you name the cycle of hurt and forgiveness, over and over, you begin to ask yourself, is this truly love or is this control? That question itself is the beginning of liberation. Recognition does not mean you stop loving. Recognition does not mean you become cold. Recognition simply means you stop lying to yourself. You stop calling harm care. You stop calling control devotion. You stop calling exhaustion sacrifice. You tell the truth about what is happening, even if the truth is heavy. And the truth, though it hurts, is the only thing that can set you free. Toxic people fear recognition because once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you notice the pattern, you cannot be lulled back into blindness. They may try harder at first. They may double their efforts using anger or pity to draw you back in. But the hold is already weaker because your eyes are open. You now know that their anger is not proof of your guilt. It is proof of their loss of power. You now know that their pity is not vulnerability. It is manipulation. You now know that their love is not love at all, not when it comes chained with conditions. Freedom is not found in fighting them. Freedom is found in understanding them. Because when you understand, you stop taking their actions personally. You stop believing their lies about your worth. You stop feeling guilty for protecting yourself. You begin to realize that their behavior is a reflection of them, not of you. Recognition pulls back the veil, and you see the truth. You were never weak. You were simply unaware, and awareness changes everything. Suddenly, you see the little moments you once ignored, the way they twist your words, the way they dismiss your feelings, the way they make everything about themselves. You see how every cycle begins, how every trap is laid, how every thread of manipulation is woven. And with that sight, you can choose differently. You can step aside instead of stepping in. You can walk away instead of walking back. Do not underestimate the power of seeing. Many people believe freedom is about fighting harder, about pushing back with equal force. But true freedom comes not from fighting in the dark, but from turning on the light. When the light comes on, the shadows lose their power. When the light comes on, you no longer stumble into the same traps. When the light comes on, you see the path that leads you out. Recognition is not always easy. Sometimes it breaks your heart. Sometimes it means admitting that someone you trusted has been using you. Sometimes it means acknowledging that what you called love was never love at all. But even in heartbreak, recognition is a gift because it prevents further harm. Pain that opens your eyes is pain that saves your life. And once you see the pattern, you begin to see yourself differently too. You see that your kindness was never the problem. You see that your compassion was not weakness. It was strength misused by someone else. You see that your forgiveness was not foolishness. It was hope misplaced. And in seeing yourself clearly, you reclaim what was always yours, your dignity, your worth, your freedom. There is no manipulation strong enough to bind a person who has recognized the pattern. There is no control that can hold a spirit whose eyes are open. The very act of seeing gives you choices you never had before. And in those choices lies freedom. Kindness with wisdom transforms everything. Kindness alone is beautiful, but kindness without wisdom can be dangerous, leaving you open to those who twist it, drain it, and exploit it. Wisdom does not erase kindness. It sharpens it, gives it form, teaches it when to bend and when to stand tall. It is the balance between an open heart and a discerning mind. And when the two walk together, no one can use your love against you. Kindness without wisdom is like rain falling on barren ground. It pours out generously, endlessly, but nothing grows. Kindness with wisdom is rain falling where seeds are planted, where it nourishes, where it creates life. To give without thought is not always love. Sometimes it is surrender. To love with wisdom is to give in ways that heal, not harm. It is to recognize the difference between lifting someone and carrying them on your back until you collapse. Wisdom teaches you that you are not required to rescue everyone. It teaches you that saying yes to every request is not generosity, it is self-betrayal. Kindness with wisdom understands that your energy is sacred, your time is valuable, your love is holy. It refuses to let anyone reduce those gifts into tools of control. It knows that love must never cost you your peace, and compassion must never demand the death of your spirit. Too often, people are taught that kindness means never refusing, never setting limits, never turning someone away. But wisdom whispers that true kindness has boundaries. Wisdom says, I can love you and still say no. Wisdom says, I can help you, but I will not harm myself in the process. Wisdom says, my soul is not your possession, and my kindness is not your leash. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. Think of a river. A river is generous. It flows, it nourishes, it sustains. But a river without banks is a flood. It drowns, it destroys, it overwhelms everything in its path. Kindness without wisdom is like that flood. It spreads everywhere, uncontrolled, leaving chaos behind. But kindness with wisdom is like the river guided by its banks. It flows with strength and direction. It gives life without losing itself. Wisdom transforms your kindness because it teaches you to discern motives. Not every cry for help is genuine. Not every request for love is born of purity. Some people ask not because they need, but because they know you will give. Some people lean not because they are tired, but because they do not wish to stand on their own. Without wisdom, you cannot see the difference. With wisdom, you recognize it instantly and you choose accordingly. When kindness is guided by wisdom, you no longer give from guilt, you give from love. You no longer help to avoid rejection. You help because it is aligned with your heart. You no longer stretch yourself thin to keep the peace. You choose when to offer, when to step back, and when to walk away. This shift changes everything because your giving is no longer rooted in fear, but in freedom. Wisdom teaches you that saying no is sometimes the kindest thing you can do. It is kind to not enable someone's destructive habits. It is kind to let others face the consequences of their choices so they may learn and grow. It is kind to protect your own energy so you can continue to love authentically. Without wisdom, kindness turns into enabling. With wisdom, kindness becomes empowerment. And when you walk in kindness with wisdom, something extraordinary happens. Your relationships change. The ones built on manipulation fall away because they cannot survive the light of clarity. The ones built on mutual respect grow stronger because healthy people honor your boundaries. You stop attracting those who feed on your generosity, and you begin to attract those who celebrate it. Wisdom is the filter through which your kindness flows, ensuring it reaches the soil where it can bloom. Kindness without wisdom drains you. Kindness with wisdom renews you. When you give with wisdom, you feel lighter, not heavier. You feel joy in your offering, not resentment. You feel connected, not chained. You are no longer pouring yourself out until you are empty. You are sharing from a cup that is overflowing. And the more you give in this way, the more life gives back to you. Kindness with wisdom also transforms how you see yourself. You begin to honor your own needs as much as you honor the needs of others. You understand that self-care is not selfish, it is sacred. You know that protecting your peace does not mean withholding love. It means making sure your love comes from a place of fullness, not depletion. Wisdom allows you to recognize your worth, so you no longer settle for relationships where your kindness is a currency to be spent instead of a treasure to be cherished. There will always be those who try to use your kindness, who see it as an opportunity rather than a gift. But when you walk in kindness with wisdom, they cannot succeed. Their manipulation falls flat. Their demands lose power. Their guilt no longer pierces your heart. You see them for what they are, and you choose differently. You choose freedom, clarity, and dignity. Kindness with wisdom transforms everything because it turns love into power. It transforms giving into strength, compassion into clarity, generosity into freedom. It teaches you that your kindness is not meant to be consumed. It is meant to be shared with those who honor it, those who respect it, those who do not confuse it with weakness. And when you embody this truth, you stand unshakable. You are still gentle, but you are no longer vulnerable to control. You are still compassionate, but you are no longer blind. You are still kind, but you are now free. For kindness with wisdom is not only a way of loving others, it is the highest way of loving yourself. So, my dear ones, let your kindness remain, but do not hand it over blindly. Protect it, honor it, and use it as the divine strength it was meant to be. For when you walk with both kindness and wisdom, no toxic hand can chain you, no manipulative voice can command you. You will stand free, shining, powerful. Your kindness not a prison, but a crown.